Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Powerhouse Podcast. I am your host, Candy Barone, and I am absolutely thrilled as I have a true powerhouse in the ring with me today. We are going to get into some rich conversation, as always. And as you know, this is our space to talk about leadership from a different perspective. It's about how you choose to show up, how you choose to serve others, and how you choose to take personal responsibility inside that space. So without further ado, let me first say hello to my amazing guest, Eric Thomas. Welcome to the show. It's so great to have you.
Thank you, Candy. It is an honor and a privilege to be here with you on today. Thank you so much.
It's my honor. I am so excited. I have been following Eric's work for a while and truly just amazed at how he does show up and how he's serving. And so let me tell you a little bit about Eric and why I'm so jazzed that he's here. Eric Thomas is a highly influential entrepreneur with more than 15 years of business experience as a life and business coach. In addition, he is a fervent pastor and keynote speaker with more than 25 years of ministerial experience. The multiple characteristics have opened doors for Eric to perform roles as a radio and TV host and special contributor for various written articles. Eric also has served as a faith branding evangelist. Likewise, his life assignment is to empower and impact people with messages of hope, inspiring them to dream and act toward their desired end. Eric also serves as the president and founder of Impacting Your World Network, an incubator for church plants and faith-based business startups. Love that. Moreover, Eric is the CEO and senior managing partner of the Impact Group, iGroup, which is a prophetic consultancy of marketplace ministry and leadership change agents. So again, Eric, welcome to the show. Just thrilled, and I'd love to jump in right away and talk about this space of spirituality and business and how they play together. I mean, I think it's fascinating, and I know with the work that you do, you're out there talking about that a lot. And so what's the connection, and how do you effectively show up and lead from both spaces?
Well, it was for me. I actually had to go through a place of really discovering that. And as you read my bio, I typically want to take that timeline and cut it in half to say that's where I really began to evolve over the last, 10 years of understanding the correlation of business and spirituality, having been very bankrupt in my life and going through trials and tribulations, and realized that my spirituality, or the practice, demonstration of my faith, was more than just a hope, just wishing things will just get better, that there are actually things inside of me that I could create inside of the chaos to get me to the other side. So yeah, that's really kind of been my journey, and then just branding that, packaging it, and sharing it with other people in the marketplace to help them transition and create through their chaos as well.
Well, and I love the fact that you call it demonstration of faith, right? I think a lot of people put things out, whether, whatever they call their higher power, whether it's source, God, universe, Tao. I have a mastermind group. We joke because everybody's kind of conflicted with what to call it. I'm like, call it Penelope. It doesn't matter, right? It's that space. But I think a lot of people put that sense of, okay, well, I've got hope. Recognizing that hope is one space and faith is something else. And so when you talk about demonstration of faith, speak a little bit more around what that really is and how that's shown up for you in particular, and how that shows up with the people that you influence and work with.
Absolutely. In every talk, in every speech, I say this, that hope is not a strategy. It is never demonstrated. It is never manifested anything. It is that thing where people kind of go in their spiritual waiting room, fold their arms, and hope that God will some way show up in their life. And he has already shown up in our lives, and our abilities to learn, to love, to lead. That's where he is. And so it's not outside of us, it's already inside, and we just have to awaken to it, and then activate it, acknowledge it, accept it, and then activate it.
Well, and activation is so key, right? And so I think about, I spent 20 years in corporate, and I think about, I now go back and talk about how to lead from love with love and feeding the soul of business. And when you talk about demonstration of faith and you talk about activating, this sense of knowing and this deep-seated belief that, God is already here and showing up, how does that transfer into a very structured, oftentimes shut down corporate or business environment where in many cases people are as far detached from that space as possible. How do they invite that in? How do they activate that? What are some of the strategies that you share to get people, I guess, reinvested or connected maybe for the first time in
Sure.
that space?
Yeah, in the ministry of Jesus Christ, whenever he performed a miracle, he would always start with these questions, and I always feel like healing comes with questions. And the biggest questions I ask my students and my clients: why? Why this workspace? Why this industry? Typically, and a lot of people don't have a definition other than it's something to pay the bills. And I always say it's important in the marketplace, especially that you make money. Especially, it's important, but more important is that you make meaning. And I think when we make meaning, when we make significance, we make a difference, we make an impact, we leverage our influence, the money's always going to be there. It's always going to show up because that's where our value truly is. So it's just really starting with why or what do you want. Many times Jesus would ask a person, do you want to be healed? It's almost like, what kind of question is that for a person who's been lame for 38 years? Well, you've been lame for 38 years. You've been exposed to some solutions and you've never transitioned into them. So do you really, really, really want to be healed? So I think those two things, starting with why do you exist? What makes you come alive? And do you really want it? I mean, really, really want enough to move and transition to get to moving towards it.
Well, and I find that so interesting because we talk a lot about, your what, why, and who, and it's that space of what do you want to create, influence, affect, change, and why does that matter to you, right? And I think one of the biggest opportunities, especially for people that have been stuck in sort of that hamster wheel of business and grinding and winding and whatever they're doing, is to take some pause to ask those questions that you're talking about, right? It's to say, what is my purpose? What am I here to serve? Why does that matter in any capacity? And what value do I put on my life and that in terms of what I'm offering other people, right? And so I love that you talk about that. One of the things I want to go back to, because I think this is a really interesting, and I know for me growing up, this was such a struggle because I was the why girl. I was the inquisitive. I wanted to know how everything worked and why things showed up. And I was so curious. And I think oftentimes, especially when it comes to some people's religious beliefs or practices, that there's this notion that asking questions says that you're not being faithful, that asking questions and challenging what's always been taught, or even questioning things that I know. I read the Bible from cover to, I was living in Cleveland, first job out of school. I'm like, okay, I've always been curious. And I had more questions than answers reading that. And I remember getting such pushback on, well, you can't be in faith with God. You can't be a true Christian. You can't be this. You can't be that if you're questioning things. And I love that you put that out there to ask questions. And I would love to hear your perspective on that insatiable, maybe curiosity and how that plays into our faith and how we show up as leaders. And again, just want to know your perspective on what your thoughts are on that.
One of the wisest men I know in our time is actually there in Texas. Dr. Mike Murdoch said this. He said it many times, but he said it one morning. I was watching television, going through a transition in my sister's guest bedroom. This kind of transition I was. Just recently lost a home, going through a divorce. And he said that questions qualify you for answers. And that's all I remember him saying in that particular lesson, was that questions qualify you for answers. And I actually decided to look in the sacred text and see how many times there were questions. And it's like God was asking questions, Moses was asking questions. David actually said, one thing I desire of you, Lord, is to be in your presence and to inquire in your temples. Like, I just have a bunch of questions. And I think these questions actually expand our capacity, right, to receive more. I think that it's all, the answers are always there, of course, but the questions are never given, the answers are never given to us, the strategies are never given to us, the solutions are never given to us until we ask. So much so that Jesus said, ask, seek, knock. Yeah. Duh. How big is that? I mean, and when you take the three letters of ask, seek, knock, they say ask, ask, seek, knock, A-S-K, ask. It's like ask, and keep on asking, never stop asking.
Oh, I love that. That actually gave me incredible chills and my eyes are watering right now. There's just something very both poetic and prophetic about what you just said. I love that, it's the ask that allows us to tap into the answers, right? It's
Yes.
the question itself. Because if we're not putting, and I so believe that to my core, and so that's why I said I wanted to kind of hear your perspective on that, because I think there is just this misconception. We tend to, whether it's in our religious beliefs, our spirituality, our business, how we approach business, there's such this space where we lock ourselves down into I should, and I call it the shoulding all over yourself, right? You're shoulding all over yourself, that I think we get paralyzed in what's beyond that, right? And so
Yeah.
you've talked about, the lessons in life, the challenges, the tribulations. And that's the other thing. People are so afraid of that space of, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if the sky falls? What if I go bankrupt? By the way, I've been there myself. What if I lose my house? What's the biggest opportunity in that space when people are allowing themselves to get paralyzed in the what if? How do they, I'm going to use your word again, activate something different to move beyond that?
Sure. You know that I'm an educator in a trading and investing academy. And when we're looking for students to enter, because there is an admissions process, one of those things that we're always looking for people who are decisive. There are other characteristics, coachable and disciplined, but those people who are indecisive, those people who will never take action. I always use this quote. It's funny, but it's almost Shakespearean. It says, there are many flattened squirrels in the middle of the road because they were afraid to make the decision. And how many people are just paralyzed by analysis? Analysis paralysis is what we call it. It's the if. What if I fail? What if I mess up? And what if? What if? I mean, you never will know until you go, until you try, until you leap. And there's so many who are trying to investigate and analyze the ifs. They never explore the real possibilities, not just probabilities, the possibilities, and to find out, because it's been said to us, absolutely nothing is impossible to those who believe. You can conceive anything if you just believe it.
So that's a great word right there. And we do a lot of like redefining things on this show, because I think sometimes we hear a phrase or a word and we're like, yeah, I got it. I get it. That word belief, I think to say the word believe, for me, that's an act. It's like love. It's an action. It's a verb. I'm curious for you, what is believe? How does it show up and how do you define that? Because I think there's people that walk around going, I have belief. And yet I would say their actions and demonstration probably contradict that.
Yeah. Well, it's not like I believe in Bigfoot or not.
Hey, I might.
The belief actually is an awareness of a truth, of a spiritual reality, that which is. There is no alternative. It just is. And it is so. And from that belief, I conceive from that belief. That's why unbelief, according to sacred text, is a sin, because there is no other alternative. There is no other reality. It's whatever he says it is, God says it is. That's what it is. You just accept it as such. And it may not manifest today or tomorrow. It may not be demonstrated today or tomorrow, but it is. And there is nothing else. That's why he said, believe in your heart and do not have. And so many people who take that kind of belief, as you talked about earlier, they'll have, there's a text that says, if you have faith as a mustard seed. It actually doesn't say a size of a mustard seed. It just says as a mustard seed. Because people think I can have mustard seed faith or belief and grapefruit size doubt. And you can't.
Right.
They abide in the same space. If you believe under this conviction of understanding this is truth, it is what it is, there is no other reality, that's it. You can't have doubt in your heart. You can't host both inside, doubt and unbelief. You know it's true. You know it's real. You touched it in your imagination. You said it with your words. And now it's just over time, it's manifesting. And that's all that there is. Everything else has to get out of the way.
Yeah. And, and I'm curious because, a lot of people watch the work that we do, Eric, and I hear this a lot where they're like, well, that's easy for you. You got it. And I always tell people I'm just the duck. I like to put that out there. I'm like, really, what you see on the surface? And oftentimes my legs are going a mile a minute because I'm curious through your journey. And you very much stand in a place to be convicted in your belief, and you walk that talk and you demonstrate that. And I'm going to put a big and out there. Do you have doubt in spaces, and where have you struggled in your own belief as you've been on this journey? Because I think sometimes that transparency to let people know that while this is knowing and we still have that human duck side to us as well, what does that look like for you? Or what does that look like for you?
I have no doubt, and I haven't always. 2008, the week before Thanksgiving, 2008, November 2008, changed my life forever. I was doing well, driving a nice car, living in a nice home, and then like overnight, everything transitioned. And then from 2009, everything seemed to unfold to the degree that particular year, financially and business-wise, I was homeless on the other end of a divorce, and that year, that Christmas could not provide anything for my 5 children. Okay, psychologically, it was crazy. And I had a friend who was really close to me. We're still close, but he was demonstrating through another faith, and that's probably one of the things that made us that closer. That our ability to just come together. And he just said, "You're such a hypocrite." And I said, "What do you mean?" It's like, you've been in ministry, Christian ministry, 20 some years, and you're not manifested any of this. I mean, I hear your conversation, which are a reflection of your thoughts. Your thoughts are a reflection of what's in your heart. And I'm sorry, you're my friend and I love you, Eric, but you're just a big old hypocrite. You really don't believe this stuff. And I really had to examine myself, and I didn't. And so over the years, just really building myself and possibility thinking, applying that, especially to the marketplace, and everything that I ever want has continued to manifest over the course of years. But I have no doubt in my heart. If I envision it, if I see it, if I dream it, if I envision it, it's there. It's real. And I'm just moving through processes, and I just trust the process that I'm going through to move into what is to me given to me. If it's given to me in a dream or vision, I receive it as a promise. I receive it as a covenant. And so God won't lie to me, and I won't lie to myself, and I'll just be true to who I am, continue to love, continue to lead, and live, and it always shows up. It always has.
Yeah. It's beautiful that way, isn't it? And what a true friend that was to call you out on your contradiction and how you're showing up, right? And I think there's such an opportunity for people, speaking of possibilities and where there's a way to open yourself up. Because people ask all the time, well, I don't know how to do that for myself. Part of it might be looking at your inner circle to say, do you have people willing to hold up that mirror and call your BS and say, look, you're not showing up in congruency with who you say you are. You're not aligned to the things you speak about, faith and trust and belief and love of God and love of life and love of self and whatever that might be. And when you have those truth tellers show up and say, I love you, this is why I'm saying this, versus people that sit there and groupthink and just shake their head and say, you're awesome, I'm cheering you on. They're not serving you to grow into that space. And so amazing. And I think more people need people like that in their life. They're so afraid to be challenged. They're so afraid to be called out on their stuff. And one, such a kudos to you to be open to receive that, because you got to be able to receive it. And for your friend to be so much in love with you as who you are, to honor you for that and show up and say, you're more than this, you're better than this, I want you to stand in your gifts. I mean, what a powerful demonstration of belief, right? And standing in that space. Because I agree. I mean, if you can dream it, it's there. Look, God didn't put anything in your heart that, and it kills me because people, to go back to that what if space, people get in that what if space. They're like, oh, what if this happens? What if? They have to create a story to go with the what if. That's not even anything that's ever happened or been fabricated. Yet that thing that they get that wakes them up, that sets their heart on fire, that feeds their soul, it takes less energy to play imagine if and let that open up, because it's already something that's been given to you. It's already a seed that's been planted.
Yes, yes.
And so I'm curious, as you've had a huge, transformation and journey, and your life is, now you're in this space to teach this at an even higher level and open yourself wide open. What is the big imagine if for you? You had the space where at one point it felt like everything was upside down and inside out, and you were being challenged in your own beliefs. And now to stand here and say, there's no doubt. I know, like I know, not to quote Lisa Nichols in my head off The Secret, but that space of knowing and trust and belief and faith. When you start to think about the work you do, the influence that you have, what's the big imaginative for you, Eric?
Sure. First of all, everyone come into that knowledge. Okay, that's the most important thing. Coming into that all knowing. All is already known that will ever happen, that will ever be. Much of it is unknown for us, but that's okay. It's really kind of about pulling back the curtains. One of my favorite movies is The Wizard of Oz, and like Deepak Chopra's The Wizard of Oz. But The Wizard of Oz, the hero in that movie for me is Toto, right? Because Toto makes a discovery that why the lion and Dorothy and the scarecrow and the Tin Man have really lost their way over this fictitious voice that's rolling them. Toto pulls back the curtain, finds out there's just this person pushing these buttons, right? And that's typically all it is. And most of the time, that big monster that's scaring us is just kind of really in our head. Then we find out we really have a heart, we really have a brain, we have a soul, and we haven't lost our way, right? So it's just coming into that all-knowing, right? And then it's really start to evolving to being. Before we do, because we're not human doings, we're human beings. We start to evolve around that knowledge, knowing who we are, what we're called to do, why we exist. Why do we exist in a time like this? We could have existed thousands of years ago, or we could have not already been born, but we're here, knowing that, and then becoming and evolving into that person. And then that does translate into the demonstration, the doing, which is very, very important. That's where we start to lead. That's where we serve. And what we're doing today in this dialogue, it's you're teaching and preaching to me and those who will see this. This is part of the manifestation of our being and just doing the work.
Yeah. And I have to say, I have a whole new appreciation for The Wizard of Oz. I never thought about that analogy. I mean, what a perfect analogy. You know, he literally, it's Toto that pulls behind the screen, right? And all you see is this little man back there pushing all the, and so we tend to make the demons, we tend to make the things, the scary, and it's always fascinating to me when I get someone that'll say, once they step through that fear or that doubt, they're like, oh, that was a lot worse than I thought it was. Or I thought it was going to be worse than what it was.
Right.
Because the story, the creation that you're manifesting around that is what's paralyzing you. And what a perfect way to describe that activation, right? To get in there. And I love that you comment around even this dialogue. I talk to people all the time, you know, it's so easy to get sucked into the negative energy that's going on, all of the problems in the world. And we tend to, like, even bad feedback, bad testimonials, judgment, we get locked in. I mean, we've created such a reality television culture, even our government, everything. It's the Desperate Housewives of Congress going on in that situation, right? And so when you look at what we consume and how easy it is to get sucked into that, what people don't realize is the power of a conversation like this raises the vibration on Earth so much more drastically. We're 10xing a level of healing because we have no idea who's going to hear this conversation. We have no idea the ripple effect. I always think about the butterfly effect. No idea what the ripple is going to be in our lifetime or in generations to come, simply because we're choosing to show up and be present and serve from a place of wide open love, belief, and surrender to say, I know, I don't have doubt, and I am a vessel or a voice or a messenger or whatever the phrase is of a message that's bigger than mine.
Yes, absolutely. That's perfect. That's perfect.
And so I'm curious, because one of the things I know, as anybody who is of great influence and is doing God's work on a great level, is that you have things that feed your soul and that influence you. And so where do you seek inspiration? Who do you kind of pull in to receive their messages, or where are you getting some of that opportunity to feed your soul on a regular basis, Eric?
I'm really, really open. My antennas are out there for anyone. It does not have to have to be an author. It could be a child in the elevator that I travel probably 80% of the time speaking. So I engage people a lot. Of course, I read books and I listen to your Tony Robbins and your T.D. Jakes and Oprah Winfrey and occasionally Deepak Chopra, and, just I'm open. Even sometimes some things may not be parallel with my faith. A wise man said to me once that even a broken clock is right twice a day. So I know that at least for me, I'm right at least twice a day. So I can generate something from that rightness and apply it to what I know is righteousness, which is my nature, my divine nature. So I'm open to all things, all things. There's a narrative, and I'm preparing a talk for a church called The Things We Know, from a text that says, "For we know all things work together for the good." And I just know that. I just know that when I walk outside of the door, I'm going to encounter someone today who's going to, it may be a stranger, but we're vibrating on that same level, that same frequency. I'm ready. I'm open. I'm receptive. My spirit has already had the makeup to already dismiss the negativity. Someone says something negative to me in passing, I'm going to give it to them in positive. And if I keep getting it to them in positive, it keeps sending back to me negative, I'm eventually just going to shut down, because I'm going to come to wall, because you're not going to infiltrate this here. So yeah, I'm just open to anywhere, from a child to a pet to an animal to a song to a book to a sermon or a talk or an Instagram post. It's just so much out there that is feeding us and leading us. So yeah, that's where I am.
I love that. I love that you pull inspiration from everything. And it's interesting because I remember reading, and it goes back to something you were saying earlier around when we were talking about the asking questions and that curious nature, and that you have to ask to receive and seek and receive the answer, right? And open up access to that. And I remember reading a passage in Conversations with God that actually was, the conversation was something around, I feel like we ask you questions all the time and you don't answer. He's like, I answer you all the time and you're not listening. And right. So the space of when you can have, because you're right, it's the book that's been sitting on your shelf for 3 years, and all of a sudden you feel this insatiable urge to pick it up and read it now, or it's the show that actually is uplifting, that's the right thing at the right time, or it's the song, or it's the path you've been on every single day, and today you notice a flower you never noticed before. It's those little ways of, so I love that so much, that you talk about inspiration, being open. I think that's the biggest opportunity for people, right? Is to allow yourself to fully be open and to receive and surrender with ease and grace. And I think one of the things that, gets into, and myself included, being a recovering control freak, was that I always thought I knew better. I thought that if I put something out there, that I had to determine how it was going to show up. And I think there's a lot of release and opportunity for more possibility when you truly stand in that space, as you said, to know and believe and recognize that everything is exactly as it's supposed to be, and that you're on that path.
It is. It absolutely is. That's it. And all it wants to do, it wants to be recognized, and it wants to be accepted, and it wants to be honored. It really, really, and I think if we don't do that enough of just honoring the good, the great, that is there, as you said, our world has a lot of negative in it, but there's so much more positive than negative. And we just can continue to honor. Sometimes the honor is just cleaning out that space. I go through my Instagram all the time and my other social media, LinkedIn, and anytime I see negativity, it's just honoring, getting rid of it, because that doesn't really exist to me. The negativity, I don't take it negatively. I love what you said. I'm trying to remember how you said it. The Real Housewives of Congress or something like that.
The Desperate Housewives of Congress. Yeah.
Congress. And just being in my field of trading and investing as an educator, it's like at the end of my class, I always have people like, did you hear the news? And I said, did you just not hear my presentation? Like, I don't watch the news.
Right.
Like, how do you invest? Like, I don't need the news to make a decision of how I'm going to invest my money. And any person who does is really a fool, and a fool and his money will easily depart. So I don't want to be departed from my money, because it's one of the ways that I honor my value of what I've done as a service. So yeah, that's good stuff. Thank you.
Well, that's so huge there, right? There's that space. I love that word honor. And I do think people don't realize that they have permission. First of all, in order to honor, you get to decide what you choose to feed yourself with. And I'm like you, I don't listen to news. I don't watch any of those reality television shows. There are things I've weeded people out of my life because I am very clear about the only things I want filling my heart, my soul, are people that are open to receiving a higher level of healing, to love, to, I love that some of the companies I work with now are starting to use the word love in actual conversations.
Yes.
Because they recognize that we've got to get back to something that is more around connection and community and love and service. And it's not about, but what I like is that you just connected, and I'd love for you to touch on that for just a moment. Connecting the fact that making money, being able to bring that forward, that space of abundance, that space of investing in ways to honor yourself, is actually a direct correlation to how much you value yourself. I think there's still too much of a notion that says me wanting money makes me a bad ex, or makes me not really someone that's a faithful servant, where I think that is the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard. When you don't have those resources, how can you possibly step up and serve at the level that you're being asked?
Absolutely. Zig Ziglar talks about money in so many ways. One, he says that money doesn't solve problems; it just helps you arrive to them in style. The wisest and rich. King Solomon said, "Money answereth all things." When I came to this understanding of how to make money and meaning in the marketplace at the same time, how they are synonymous, little boy David in the sacred text, when he fought Goliath, when he said, "I'll do it," he said, "I'll do it." He asked this question. I love this question. He said, "So what will happen to the man who defeats this giant?" And so he's going to go fight something that's bigger than him. He actually was just on an errand, but he realizes this giant is challenging his community and his nation. And that upsets him. And he says, "I'll fight because no one else wants to do it. I'll serve. I'll do it. But what's going to happen to that person? How much do I get paid for this?" Is what he asked.
What's it worth to you? Yeah, right.
And there actually was a compensation plan for that. And it was, one, you're going to receive so much in the weight of gold and silver. You would receive the king's pretty daughter, and then he was going to get a tax cut. And I was thinking, man, that's what happens when we make meaning, not only just for ourselves, because it really wasn't his battle, it was King Saul's battle, but his army wasn't even going to fight. No one had responded to this giant that said, "If I beat your soldier, your entire kingdom is going to be under our slavery." It's like, this guy's like, "No, that can't go down like that." So when we go to work every day, it's like, I'm not just going to work to pay the mortgage and pay the bills. I'm going to work to serve my community, serve my nation, make people better, or whatever industry it is. It does not matter. It really does not matter. But you have to understand that valued on that, the significance I make in this industry, there has to be some types of way that there's going to be compensation coming back. As I create value is going to come back to me. And you got to be okay with that. I make that confession every day that, "Lord, here's my number. I know what I'm doing in the marketplace. Here's what I look for annually, or, to come back to me." And it always shows up.
It does. And again, I love your ability to draw the analogy and make that so simple, because I do think people, it's interesting. I had somebody once quote a Bible passage when I was talking about something, and they're like, "Oh, you're so off, blah, blah, blah." And I read what they wrote and said, "Thank you for validating what I just said." You do realize that what you just wrote actually just absolutely validated the position I was taking. And they were like, "Well," and I'm like, first of all, it's perspective. Second of all, it's how you choose to interpret it. And three, it literally just said exactly. So it was interesting because I think people push back. And I love that analogy is so powerful that you're like, huh. Because the law of, and I laugh because, I'm an engineer by background, and people are like, "Oh, the law of attraction, the law of this." And I'm like, universal laws are truths. They are a knowing, they're a belief. The law of compensation, the law of attraction, the law of reciprocity. They are just like gravity, and the fact that things happen whether I love the way Wayne Dyer says it. Look, you try to stop your fingernails from growing. You can't stop something that has a universal truth, that has a spiritual reality to it. It is because it is because it is, and there's nothing we can do to stop an acorn from becoming an oak tree. There's nothing we can do from stopping a fish to live their dharma, which is to swim the ocean. It's when we try to make that fish fly that we start messing with the natural laws of spiritual principles and universal truths. And so I love that analogy. I might have to borrow that story because, man, sometimes I feel like it's so challenging to get people to understand that money is absolutely a must in the game of living your spiritual truth, and a must in you aligning yourself to be of your maker and living in a space of abundance. I don't believe we were put here to be anything other than abundant, prosperous, and to serve at the highest level possible.
That's it. John 10:10, the words of Jesus Christ, I have come that you might have life, may have life, and have that life more abundantly. Live that life to the highest degrees. And that's it. That's what he wants. So why not have it if that's what
right. Well, and isn't there another verse from John where he says that I'm here and that you need to know that I'm here to help you prosper?
Right.
It's that space, right? That truth of this is your role, is to prosper and be everything and live in that dharma and live in that space. And, you know, I find it fascinating. I get very wound up around this.
That greatest sin is for Jesus was in John 15 when he says, I came that you might bear fruit and that you have a fruitful life. And if you're not fruitful, he says, I'll be like a gardener. I'll prune you. He said, but then I'll examine you again. And he said, eventually, if you don't produce fruit, I'm going to cut you off, because it's all about just bearing fruit in life. That's all it is, about just being really, really, really fruitful in life. And that's the greatest sin. It's not being fruitful, not being productive, not being prosperous. So
I love that. I love that so much. So Eric, I'm curious, we're going into a new year. This is speaking of prosperity. And I just always look at, not a big fan of New Year's resolutions or anything like that, but I do look at a new turn, a new cycle. When you look at, you know, what year it is spiritually, what number, when you think about new, when you think about stepping into the next level, what's the next level look like for you? What's this upcoming year going to bring that you're getting excited about?
Yeah, I think we're moving into dimensions of. I know that we're moving into dimensions of quantum leaps, leaping into new worlds. What that means exactly, I don't even know. I know that I'm seeing and having experiences now that I can't really even utter and explain. It's just it's almost like when you go to Costco and they give you a sample. It's just kind of like a foretaste. It's like a scripture that says in the book of Hebrews, there are some guys who've tasted the future. And I had that experience this morning, just waking up, and I saw just a lot of just prosperous activity on the wall. And I really thought like there was a light or something glowing into my room. It was just so amazing. It was such a loving, loving moment. And then it was just like the Father said, I'm just giving you a forecast of 2019. Like, just really, really get ready to be really engaged in your calling and your gift. And I just saw it on the walls playing out like a movie. It was just like a foretaste. I couldn't make it all out. I couldn't make the faces out or the activities. It was just like it's a quantum leap. And it was just like, get ready to move into new worlds and be okay with that. It's going to be unusual experiences moving us into 2019. We just need to be okay with that.
That is truly beautiful. And that idea of quantum leap and the preview of knowing something just magical and magnificent and spectacular is on its way. I just love that. And so I know there's people right now listening that they're falling in love with you the way I've fallen in love with you, where they're just like, man, I want to get to know more of what Eric's doing. I want to follow him. I want to be out there and be part of this message in this space where he's just influencing on such a high level. How do people stay in conversation with you? How do they continue to engage with you? Because I know there's people hungry for that right now.
Sure. We are at a place of new beginnings for us in the organization, new name from iGroup Consultants to Marketplace Ecclesia. So our website is temporarily down as we rebrand that. New PR team we're bringing in. So everything will be ready on January, I think, 2nd or 3rd. But in the interim, Eric, ERIC, at theimpactgrouponline.com is my email, still functional. Eric, ERIC, at theimpactgrouponline.com. And just be on the lookout for Marketplace Ecclesia. I have new partners and new coaches and consultants that have been working with us. And we're ready to work with people who are looking to find their purpose in the marketplace And I'm going to say it one last time, and I'll say it over and over again. And when you see it on my posts and blogs, is we're here to help people make meaning in order to make the money. And just not chase the money. It's going to be there. I want you to show up in your industry and make a difference, make an impact, use your influence, leverage it to create the future, which I talked about this morning on my video blog, that we want to see. That's up to us. We're the architects of our own future. So let's do that together. I'll be happy to work with you all and help you design that.
Awesome. And we will have all that information for you in the notes below. And before I have Eric share one last thought with us, let me just say I am deeply honored to have you on the show. For those of you that don't know, this is actually Eric and my first time getting to interact live, getting to actually get to know each other better. I have been following his work for a while now on Instagram in particular, and just absolutely have loved the way he shows up and how he serves. And so I reached out and said, Eric, would you please be a guest on this show? And he so graciously, so humbly, so beautifully said yes without hesitation. And so I am just deeply honored and grateful, and my eyes are watering again, to have you here. It has been absolutely magical. You are one of the most beautiful human beings I know. And I know you're going to continue to do such amazing and powerful work in the world. So thank you for how you show up and how you serve. It matters.
This is a beginning for you and I. Look forward to doing and working and serving and helping people and edifying people as a cooperative.
I would agree. And so thank you for that as well. I'm very honored by that. And as we close out this just really beautiful discussion today, if you had one thing that you would like to leave the audience with, a thought or a way to kind of summarize what we've talked about, what might that be?
Yeah, I'd say what my sister Deborah said to me in the middle of my transition starting in 2018. She said, Eric, there's something greater that you're going to walk into. She said these words, I'll never forget it. It's like yesterday. She said, when the door opens, be there. Don't be trying to get ready. Don't try to be there. Be there. When it happens, just be at that door. And I've made sure to be that guy, to be the individual, be the man, be the father I need to be, that when doors of opportunity open to me, like this was a door, that I'm ready for it. It's as a person, I am ready. Mentally, I'm ready. Spiritually, I am ready. Financially, I want to be ready. So just this year, this last couple of days moving into the new year, just prepare yourselves for many, many doors and portals to open to you. But be ready when those doors open. Just be ready. Be there.
I love that. Be ready, right? When that door opens, be ready. And it goes into everything that we talk about, which it starts with you saying yes to yourself. It has to be a space where you say yes to yourself. You destroy the noise getting in the way, and you allow yourself that space to imagine the possibilities that are truly just through that door waiting for you. And so, Eric, thank you again from the deepest part of my heart and soul for being here. I honor everything you do, who you are, how you represent. I know there's so much amazing goodness that's coming. And today I hope you all will take that challenge to show up when the door opens and walk through. With that, this is Candy. I am so grateful for all of you for showing up once again and joining us on the Powerhouse Podcast. Please subscribe if you're not already, haven't already subscribed, so that you don't miss any one of these powerful episodes. And again, just a heartfelt and deep, soulful gratitude and thanks to my friend Eric Thomas for being just absolutely magnificent in this space. With that, everybody, Happy New Year. Go out and live your life with purpose, great passion, and great intention. I will catch up with you next time on the next episode.